Hello and welcome to another Get Good at Business highlight. So excited that you're here. I'm your host, Taylor Proctor, and your Get Good at Business coach. I work with business owners like yourselves to get good at business through utilizing the I Move method, which stands for intuition, marketing, operations, velocity, and execution. And today we're going to learn from the amazing Melissa Rohlfs all about how she uses I Move within her business. So we're going to be discussing intuition in her business, marketing her in her business, and so on. So before we dive into the questions, though, it is my honor to introduce you to Melissa. So she is a certified holistic health and life coach, helping busy moms and teen girls find freedom from the struggle with food so they can be at peace with food, their bodies, and their lives. She's committed to empowering women to break free from dieting, emotional eating, and self-image issues so they can ditch the diet mentality and feel empowered in their own skin. After her own tumultuous history with food, withholding, and later in life binging, she learned how to deal with the core issues around her broken relationship with food. As a result, she felt called to go to school and learn how to teach other women to do the same. She graduated as a health coach from the Health Coach Institute as a holistic health and life coach in 2018 and is the proud owner of Free to Be Coaching. She is also a proud Purdue alumni living in Arizona with her husband, Chad, and two kiddos. And her business is all about helping teen girls and women find freedom from the struggle with food. So, Melissa, so important to be able to discuss this today. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, Taylor.
So, I mean, your bio went into the background a little bit, but would you mind sharing more with us about a specific moment or maybe a realization that fueled your passion to help moms and teen girls actually find freedom from food?
Yeah, I think it was just everything. I mean, for me, it started in childhood when I was 8 and using food to kind of cope with things I didn't know how to handle. So food kind of became a comfort. And then I felt like I was overweight. So then I withheld and I just never had a good relationship with food because the dieting industry is telling us that we need to withhold and deprive and do all these crazy things. And none of that worked for me because it never got to the heart of the issue. So really dealing with the heart of the issue and realizing what that was is what set me free. So that's a little bit of the story.
Yeah. May I ask, what was the heart of the issue for you?
Yeah, it was trauma. I mean, I didn't know how to handle stuff from childhood. And so food was my safety, it was my escape, it was my go-to, it was what I used to feel good. But then I realized, oh my gosh, this is affecting my weight. And so I think all of that was rooted in trauma because I didn't feel like I was thin enough or I was good enough or I was whatever. And so I used food to either withhold and like punish myself or to like overindulge to try to feel better.
I love that. So, how do you utilize intuition to really shape the vision of Free to Be coaching and to add in your coaching methodology and working with these women and their issues with food?
Yeah, I totally have to follow my intuition because I mean, everybody is so different and everybody brings their own set of struggles to the table. And so I think it's really trusting myself and my gut and what I've gone through and what I've learned and what I've known to really tap into that and really help them with that. But I think part of it too was for me, it was intuition like led me to this is what my business is called. This is what I'm about. This is my mission. Like that was such a foundational piece for me with that. And it's really just been this journey of learning to trust myself.
I love that. I think that's so important for business owners. Let's call it again for everybody in the back, right? Learn to trust yourself as a business owner, and intuition is a crucial part of that.
Well, and there's so many similarities between that and the diet industry, right? Like diet industry says one thing, eat this, do this, don't do this. Business does the same thing, do this, don't do this. And really, once you learn to trust yourself in both scenarios and you realize what's best for you, that's, I think, where the magic happens.
Absolutely. Such a good call out. So when we talk about marketing for your business, you are kind of up against the diet industry, which has
Yeah.
massive marketing budgets and huge infiltration across the psyche and society,
Mhm.
especially in the United States. So what unconventional and effective strategies have you found in being able to reach and connect with your ideal audience?
I think it's just telling the truth. I think it's calling those things out because I think a lot of times we are maybe not aware of things because we're just so used to it. Like we've all been conditioned to believe that we need to eat lunch at noon because it's noon, but really it's more about like listening to your body and what works best for you. So I think it's kind of creating awareness and calling those things out and kind of shaking people in their tracks and making them stop and think has been really powerful because we're just inundated from every which way.
So true. So when you look at operations for your business, right? Have you had any like key operational measurements or strategies that you've implemented to really support the growth and the impact as you're sharing that truth and unfiltered message?
I think giving myself time to really stop and think about who I'm speaking to, what I want to say, and really giving myself that space has been a big piece of my operational piece because it's so easy to get caught up in the to-dos and I have to do this and this and this. But if what you're doing isn't making an impact, it's not really worth doing. And you need to like kind of evaluate where the breakdown is. So I think for me, it's been giving myself time and space to do all of those foundational pieces, like whatever that is, whether it's social or email or whatever that may be, but just really giving myself the space and the permission to do that and scheduling that in my calendar and not filling it with something else.
Yes. And I think that's a really good call out too. What you had said earlier is business is very likened to that diet industry. And so giving yourself the time when you're eating, right?
Yeah.
To fill in and see what makes sense and if it's working or not working and all of that. So I love that you've applied the methodology that you work with your clients for straight up to your business.
The crossover has been unreal. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can like, I see how this correlates to them, but I see where it's correlating in my business too. And so it's so interesting the connection that the two have.
So cool. I love that. So, what strategies have you adopted to maintain and accelerate free to be coaching in the last few years?
I think really looking at what is working and what isn't working, the metrics have always scared me off. I've never been a numbers person, but I think really getting into the nitty gritty and looking at like, okay, what are the conversions? What does my audience want? What's resonating with them? I think that has been really helpful because then you know where to focus and you know where you need to put your concentrated effort into instead of just, oh, I feel like doing this, I'm going to do it. Because I did that for the first time in years, like, oh, it's spring, I'll do spring cleaning. Well, what does that have to do with anything? So I think really just kind of getting into the metrics and the nitty gritty and seeing, okay, what are people resonating with? Where are they converting? Where is there a gap? And trying to figure that out.
And I love that because when we talk strategies in iMove, that is the velocity building strategies, right? And you just hit the nail on the head. So many, at least business owners, when they're first starting, are just like scrambling to figure it out. And the real truth to add velocity is to look at those numbers, those metrics, be aware, paying attention to how things are converting or what's working, what's not working, and leaning in on those that work and leaning away on those that don't. Or you see things work and you're like, wow, this is not attracting my ideal client in any way, shape, or form. Actually, and I do have a question about that. So, as your ideal clients are women and teen girls who struggle with food, do you have an ideal, like, are there people that you like to work with and people that you don't like to work with? Like, is there, I mean, back when I was a life coach, I really set a line in the sand that I wasn't going to work with anyone who was suicidal because that was outside of my realm. I think
Mhm.
with food, and there's a lot of diversity in what's out there in terms of mental mindsets and all the way to full on binge eating or anorexia and things like that. So, who are the types of people that you work best with?
That's such a great question. And I can't quite pinpoint that to be honest with you, because I've had clients all across the board. Like I've had girls in high school, love working with them, love that. And then I've also had grandmas and I love working with them too. And so I think it's really just a woman who has maybe tried things and they haven't worked and they're ready to try something different and really kind of commit to a different way of learning and being and doing. I think that's really my ideal person. And I know this is terrible, like in terms of like niching, you should like have that specific person, but I love them all and I want to help them all. And maybe that's a detriment.
No, it's funny you say that though, because I think that niching is there's niching your products and there's niching your audience, and they're two very different types of niching that get kind of clumped together. And it sounds like you've really niched your product to help and support a variety of individuals, which is always so good. So I want to take a few minutes before we dive into the E, the execution, and hear about your free resource for that wide variety of women and teenage girls who are struggling with food. So would you mind sharing with us a little bit more about the free resource you have for our listeners and audience?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a short video on the missing piece because I feel like there are so many things that women and teen girls do to try to find freedom from that struggle with food. And usually it revolves around rules and regulations and do this and don't do this. And if you just find the perfect meal plan, and this video kind of like deconstructs all of that and tells you why they're bunk and why it's garbage and what really is missing and what you can do to find that freedom because it's not going to be found in any diet plan or program or shake or pill or patch or whatever they're trying to sell you.
I love that. And then that link is in our video description. So you can click that and go check out. And how long is the video again?
It's like 15 minutes. It's short. Like I'm a big person since I've got kids, Taylor. I'm always like, okay, let me do this while I'm getting ready. So while I'm doing my hair and makeup, I'm watching the video or listening at least.
So deconstruct your problems with food in 15 minutes. I love it. So let's move to E, which is the execution or implementation side of the iMove method. So what significant initiative are you focusing on or currently diving into for your free to be coaching program? And then how are you executing on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm really trying to focus in on like what is the main pain point and like what is the one thing instead of being so broad and scattered, like I talked about a little bit earlier, just really kind of focusing down and executing on one thing, one problem, one solution, one like go-to thing.
I love that. So crucial and important as business owners. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa, for joining us today. Everybody who's watching and listening, again, check out her free resource. It is in the description of today's episode. And if you are intrigued and interested in learning more about the iMove method and how it can be applied to your business, I'd like to invite you to check out the Get Good at Business Mastermind. We will share a link in the comments to be able to check that out. It's $27 for the first month to check it out, get resources, training, hot seat Q&A, networking, and even co-working hours. So with that said, be sure to stay tuned for more great business highlights for getting good at business. Let me say that again. Stay tuned for more great business highlights for getting good at business. And in the meantime, remember to utilize the iMove method. And Melissa, again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.